Is it crucial everyone tries this golf club at least once? Golf is very much a constant yo-yo effect of distance versus dispersion. Even though the club that I have with me today is a great option for the golf population in its entirety, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, especially when you start this game. What is that one club that cuts down the majority of the golf course on average, but at the same time you confidently know that it's not going to run off the side of the planet? And ultimately this game is all about averages, because I know all too well, especially through the years I've been playing this game and being able to hit the driver an incredibly long way, doesn't necessarily mean that is the best golf club for me in a pressured environment, because the bad almost always outweighed any of the good. And this particular club will always be different for that particular golfer. When you start this game, traditionally it's going to be your 7-iron. Goes 140, 150, but because your technique's not quite there, you can't hit your 5-iron any further. Your 5-wood barely gets off the ground, and the driver goes further right than it does forward. As you get better and your technique improves, your driver does go further than any club in the bag. But when you get to those tight par 4s or short par 5s, you think to yourself, is that extra length really worth the added risk of just finding the short stuff? And then we come up to that added dilemma. 14 clubs maximum in the golf bag, meaning a good portion of the time we need clubs that have multiple uses. Yes, it gives us a particular yardage on our full swing, but does it help us out of the bunker? Does it get us out of the trees? Can it help with those tricky bump and runs around the green when we're not too confident with our bladed wedge? But when I'm asked those particular questions from multiple different levels of golfers, it's incredibly difficult to make these types of videos and suggest one club that does all, ticks all the boxes of the above: distance, dispersion, price, utility, as well as the chances that particular golf club will suit all of those golfers and give them exactly what they're looking for. And lastly, there's one more box that needs to be ticked for me to be able to suggest one club to the masses, and that is price. Because to answer all of the questions above can be simply fixed just by a club fit. A club that is particularly fitted for your swing, your game, your technique, and exactly what you're looking for that club to particularly do in certain situations on the golf course. The downside of that club fit route is the price element. Therefore, the club that I need to suggest to the masses, beginners, intermediate, advanced players, needs to be affordable, but at the same time not scrimp on that all-important dispersion versus distance factor. And for me, the answer is relatively simple, as the length of the shaft determines for the majority of golfers the dispersion element, which just makes sense. The longer the shaft, the further away you are from the golf ball, and traditionally with the majority of golf clubs, the longer the shaft, the less loft you have at the bottom, and that added length of shaft is to help increase club head speed, so you are able to get that ball up in the air. But there is one problem with adding length to shafts. Great for club head speed, and no wonder drivers have been getting longer and longer over the last 20 years or so. The issue with adding length to any golf club though is centeredness of strike, finding the sweet spot, finding the middle. And for that very reason, there's no wonder why the 5-wood is your favorite club. No wonder why your Rescue is your go-to club off the tee. And for a lot of beginners, why the 7-iron goes that much further than the 6 and 5. Of course, the 6 and 5, 1 out of 100, will ultimately go further because it's less lofted, but you've got a few thins, you've got a few fats, you've got a few toe shots with those clubs, whereas the 7-iron, on average, just seems to make more sense when you're trying to cut down your local golf course. So Simon, what is the answer? Because I simply can't just use my 7-iron around the local golf course. Well, for me, the answer seems very simple. a club that is 7-iron length, but with a bit of oomph on the end of it. And traditionally, golf clubs that are able to cure a multiple amount of problems on the golf course demand a high price, which just isn't the case with this golf club. And considering Cobra's the only manufacturer mass produces one length hybrids, I find it very surprising how cheap you can pick this up. Problem number one that some of you might be struggling with, then bump and run. You can't get on with your wedge, you don't want to putt it because there's too much danger in front of you. Therefore, a highly lofted hybrid like this would be a great little alternative. Number two, you're on a tight par 4, tree lined, and you need to find the middle of the golf club and nothing else. And with having a shorter length shaft, you're more likely to do so. But taking a 7-iron on a 360-yard uphill par 4 is just not an option. Whereas this little beauty, even though it won't go as long as a traditional length hybrid, because you're not going to swing it as fast, it's going to go far enough. And because you're more likely to find the middle, on average, potentially it will go further than your traditionally lengthed hybrid that you have in the bag. And then thirdly, arguably my best reason to have this in the bag, and also probably a great benefit to the majority of you guys out there. The ball's in the rough, but you're a considerable distance from the green. You can't play your 7-iron as it won't get there, but your 5-wood or your traditional rescue isn't going to cut through this grass. Because the hybrid is 7-iron length, naturally you're going to come down into the ball steeper, meaning there's going to be less grass between you and the golf ball. Ultimately meaning you're going to get better contact and probably better distance out of the shot. I couldn't really ask for a better advert really, could I? My point of this video is that if 2 out of the 3 problems that I just presented there is something that you face when you get on the golf course, this could be the answer for a grand total of a £60 investment, a £70 investment. And this is an old model. This is the F8 version, which has been out near on 5 years. And the fact that you can get the newer version for 100, 110 or even £90 means that this club itself will baseline around that £60 mark. And because the club is so unique and it potentially solves so many problems that you potentially face out on the golf course, this is why I strongly believe this club here is crucial for every golfer to try at least once, because if it solves your problems, then potentially you've got a technical issue that you need to iron out so you can do what this club does with all your clubs in your bag. And therefore, if you outgrow this golf club and you can then hit the same shot with your traditional 5-wood, driver, longer irons, well then you're not going to really lose that much money when you need to sell it on to someone else that potentially had the same problems you did when you started out with this thing. Now guys, if you like this video, potentially you might like this video up here on the left hand side, which talks about getting the most out of your driver. Is it the technology or is it your technique? Catch you guys later.